this is where it gets really interesting. We're seeing some Genesis 3 language here, where Abram says to his wife, Sarai, he says, "I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance." And you're like,
oh, that sounds like a tree.
Something looks good in appearance, and it's Sarai, and it's also
something that might be desirable.
That fruit.
Something you want to take.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, and so
Interesting.
I think this is absolutely a callback to that whole idea of seeing that something was good, seeing that it was desirable, and then taking it. We see that, it's almost like you could say Sarai was a delight to the eyes.
It's also interesting to see how when that thing was taken, it resulted in a negative consequence for Pharaoh and for Abram as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, you can kind of see here, Abram gets out pretty well.
He doesn't die. So yeah, that could actually be
we'll see how
favorable.
God blesses him even though he is not following God by doing this.
He's going down.
God is still choosing to bless him, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But, you're seeing Sarai, she is beautiful in appearance. And when the Egyptians see you, they're going to say, this is his wife, and so they're going to want to kill me. So he's like, well, what if we did this? I have an idea. What if I basically disowned you as my wife and said that we are siblings instead? Because then they're not going to kill me.
I would never want to be siblings with my wife.
Yeah. But what is this saying? This is saying that Abram is now, he's disowning his wife. And he is ready and willing to give her up to be married to someone else. And so this is why we see the word like his wife. We see that phrase show up constantly in this passage. It shows up like 6 times.
Yeah.
It's like verse 11, Sarai, his wife. In verse 12, this is his wife. We see in verse 17, we get these plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Now then, here is your wife. And then in the last verse, and Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him. They sent him away with his wife. And so you're seeing how there's this huge focus on the fact that they're married. But it seems like Abram doesn't really have this focus. Yeah. And Abram's just more than okay to just give it up. Because he's just like, I want to stay safe. And so what am I going to do? I am just going to disown the fact that she is my wife. Yeah. And I am just going to keep myself safe. And so he literally gives her up to be married to the Pharaoh. And it's kind of
my mind goes back. I just want to touch on this briefly to Genesis 2.
Okay.
And it seems with the emphasis on wife and the emphasis on how self-centered Abram is acting, that it is almost in a direct way going against what God even says. A man and a woman should be. I think of Genesis 2:24. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And it seems like in this, not actually a divorce, but you see a divorce of that one flesh saying, hey, you act as your own entity to save your skin, and I'll act as my own entity to save my skin. And in addition to that, this is all coming from the genius mind of Abram rather than just listening to what God has already told people what marriage should look like.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is not the how-to that you should be focusing on. Right? And it's interesting because Abram's whole promise is about family. And what does Abram instantly go against?
Give you a horrible example for family.
Right? And so it's like, this is, the biblical authors are toying with this idea because they're like, man, like Abram's not supposed to be an example here. This is a prime example of a time where just because you read in the Bible doesn't mean it's what you should do. Yeah. Because you see, like in the last section, God is going to bless him and his family.
Hmm.
And he's promising a great nation. And then here, he just throws that away.
Wow.
And we see this happen multiple times in Abram's story, where he is just so willing to just totally not focus on his family. We see actually almost an exact replay of this story in Genesis 20.
Hmm.
And we also see this when Abram goes and basically cheats on his wife to continue their family line because they don't trust God with their servant Hagar.
Wow.
And so you think that with this one person having 3 stories that come to my head, at least, there's probably other undertones that we see in other events. Like, these stories are giving focus that this person who's supposed to be the family man
Totally unfaithful.
is pretty unfaithful.
Wow.
Yeah. And they give a prime example of it, literally right here.
Hmm.
And so you can see the continuation of these Genesis 3 undertones with the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh.
Hmm.
And then the woman was taken into Pharaoh's household. And so there's the seeing that it was good, and then there's the taking, which is like, they're just giving this to you, you know. This is a prime example of like, what does sin look like? It looks like this. Like, it looks like Abram giving up his own wife to be married to someone else so that he can feel safe.